Hi.
Hello and welcome to Community Thinkers, a broadcast mini-series from the Summit Hill Association. Thanks for joining us. In this series, we hear from one of St. Paul's most thoughtful people about issues that matter to our neighbors here in Summit Hill and all of St. Paul. I'm Sherry Johnson. I'm a process guide, inclusion trainer, and complexity coach. I'm also a board member here at Summit Hill Association.
And I'm Monica Huss, the Executive Director of the Summit Hill Association. I'm glad that you can join us today. This series is learning a little bit about development as we look through to our neighborhood comprehensive plan. We have invited all sorts of experts to give us lots of information about the things we don't know.
And so this show is for you. So after I get things started with our guests today, we're going to turn to the chat where Monica will share your questions with our guests. So before we learn from today's community thinker, please do check in the chat. We'd love to hear some more about what brought you here today, if you want to share that. And the community thinker we've asked to join us today is Abigail Adelsheim-Marshall. She's co-owner of Mischief Toy Shop. We're going to talk about what it's like to run a retail business on Grand Avenue, her hopes for this important commercial corridor, and what she'd like to see in the neighborhood plan. Welcome, Abby.
Thanks. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're so excited. We've had quite a few technical glitches between last Friday and now, so we're so glad that you've rolled with us. You've been wonderful and patient, especially during your busiest season, Easter season, right?
Easter's definitely busy. The holidays are busier, but Gotcha. Easter is always a nice bump, especially after the cold, dark of the winter.
And you're running Easter basket special. Do you want to talk about that before we get into it?
Yeah, that's our most popular thing right now. And the idea is our customers tell us who they're buying for, like what kind of things they're into, how old they are. And then I go around the store and I pick out items specifically selected for them and put them in a cute Easter basket with like cellophane wrapping and a little candy if they want. And we started doing this last year when the pandemic first hit. And it's been a really good way we can kind of take what we're best at, which is recommending toys, because that's kind of the whole thing that we do, and do it in a more socially distanced, pandemic, and more convenient way for people.
That's awesome. I heard something about bike delivery too. Is that a thing?
Yes, my dad will deliver you your baskets or anything else. Orders over $50 within 5 miles of the store. If you're outside of that radius, we also do shipping.
That's amazing. All right, so let's get into it. Abby, tell us about your personal history with Summit Hill and Grand Avenue.
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Twin Cities, so Grand Avenue has always been a staple in my life. I can't remember a time when I didn't go to Cafe Latte fairly regularly. That's always been one of my family's favorite places. Specifically, my grandma would bring me to Cafe Latte all the time. And now I own Mischief Toy Store. I'm one of the owners, which is just a block away from Cafe Latte. And it's always really funny to think about how many times we must have walked by this same building before it was ours and before it was Mischief. So Grand has always been a staple in my life, and I think it's a staple in the Twin Cities, and getting to be a part of that in a landmark in the community in this really fun shopping district has been really great.
Yeah, a lot more rainbows now, though.
Exactly.
Right.
Yes, that's our goal.
So what's it like being a young retailer in St. Paul right now?
Yeah, I think it's a very interesting time to be a young retailer. And I mean, my dad has been called a young retailer, and he is 50. He's been called a young whippersnapper before. So I think I'm like the uber young retailer. And for the most part, it's really good. I think we definitely have a slightly older entrepreneur group in the Twin Cities. But they're all really great people, and I am friends with most of them. We have like professional communication areas that we do. We do like networking and help people out. Like not this last holiday, but the season before that, I did a big program where we did like a Christmas passport with a lot of 12 different shops in the neighborhood. So that community is really awesome, and it's really wonderful as a younger person to be a part of that and to be able to have a concrete impact on my community.
That's awesome. So is that kind of more of an informal group that meets
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's an informal group. A few of us, like the Red Balloon people, next chapter, the Yarnery, just kind of small independent businesses. We meet up for lunch once in a while, though we haven't lately.
So, and in your travels and chats with other retailers, and especially this informal group you've been meeting with, like,
Yeah.
what are you sensing are some pressures or issues facing neighborhood commercial districts like this?
I think one of the largest things is just a decrease in in-store shopping, and like online shopping. That's one of the biggest problems. I like to say that small businesses are never competitors against each other. We're all just competitors against Amazon. Um, and I think adding on to that pressure is a lot of people don't want Grand to become busier, and different shopping areas to have more people living there, have more people coming and going, but they want the quaint businesses to stay there and all of their favorite places to go, and they can be there, like pop in anytime they want. And those two things don't go together. You need growth. You need more families in the neighborhood. You need more people visiting to keep and retain those businesses. And that's why we have a lot of empty storefronts on Grand right now. There's a number of issues that go into that, but I think we need more apartments. And seeing, like, we've got several apartment buildings proposed on the avenue, and a lot of the neighborhood kind of pushes back against that. And I get that you want the neighborhood to stay and feel the same, but we are going to lose Grand Avenue, which is kind of a characteristic of this neighborhood, unless we can grow and develop the neighborhood and kind of grow with the businesses, because the businesses need the customers.
So when you think about like neighborhood plans, like we're working
Yeah.
on, or overlay districts, what kinds of things can they do to help retail businesses like yours?
A lot. First of all, I think we need to get rid of the Summit East, the overlay law that keeps buildings from being too tall, which is more of a city thing, but we need to get rid of that so that businesses can have buildings that are big enough to support themselves, because no one's building one-story retail anymore. But other things, I think supporting businesses and putting out advertisements and stuff like that, and conversations in the neighborhood, like different programs around the holidays, like say, hey, here are all of these fun stores and some of my favorite things at them. Or one thing I really wanted to do was profiles on local entrepreneurs, like go around to different stores in the neighborhood and interview the owners and what kind of stuff they do, and maybe do like a weekly column on, hey, look at all of these stores and the awesome people that found them and what they do in our neighborhood. Because I think a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this too, don't realize what is right in your neighborhood, because there's so much in the world that it's hard to know what is right next door. But those are often the funnest things.
Yeah. So, and then what kinds of things could a plan or something like an overlay district, what could they do that might harm the retail businesses like yours?
I think anything that makes it harder to open a business. So more restricted, like things that restrict what you can do with a building, thing like our parking permits. What if a building wants to be a retail building or wants to change purpose, they need to have a certain number of parking spots. That makes opening a business really difficult, especially on Grand, where we have a lot of public transit and a lot of people don't need parking. Having minimum parking spot requirements is really a difficult thing to opening new businesses, and I think it drives businesses away from Grand Avenue. And on top of that, I think you need to balance outside neighborhood customers with people who live in the neighborhood. And I think both of those are equally important. And creating infrastructure that works for both of them, like maybe more regular bus stops along, and maybe only one avenue of parking so that walking along Grand is a little safer. Because I live on Grand Avenue, and crossing the streets can be a little hazardous sometimes. So putting in policies that makes Grand a little more walkable and bikeable and a little greener, like more trash cans, stuff like that, that makes it just more pleasant to be on Grand Avenue, is very helpful. And I think discouraging that can be very harmful.
Gotcha. And then if you could sort of snap your fingers, and we ask every guest this question, if you could snap your fingers and have your wish be granted, what do you wish everyone knew about Main Street retail?
Yeah. I wish everyone knew that the businesses you see on Grand Avenue are not the same as Target and Walmart. They're mostly owned by people who live in the neighborhood. They are part of the community. They're not this outside thing that's trying to take advantage of the community or anything like that. They are the community. And I wish that people knew the difference between chain stores and stores that are rooted in the community. Because I think stores rooted in the community are some of the most important things to a community's character.
Gotcha. So we're going to bring Monica back.
Yeah.
Monica, you gonna come hang with us for a sec? She's good. She's working on it. Do we have any questions in chat? I know it's kind of a weird hour, noon on a Wednesday.
We do not yet.
All right. I have heard, Monica, can you think of other questions that you've heard in the community that would be good to ask?
I'm curious about the loss of GABA to the businesses and what they feel they need to succeed as a group together.
Yeah. I mean, the GABA thing is very complicated. I think many businesses, GABA didn't affect them too much one way or the other. One of the prime purposes of GABA was Grand Old Days, which was really, really helpful to a lot of the restaurants and stuff like that. That was a really big day for them. But for a lot of the retail, it was kind of take it or leave it. I know for us, Grand Old Days is always a day when there are a lot of people and not very many sales because everyone is browsing, which is great marketing, but it's not the most important thing for businesses. So I think to a lot of the retail, GABA is kind of neither here nor there. I do think there are other groups like Main Street, Shop Main Street, and stuff like that. And Visit St. Paul actually has been very helpful in kind of encouraging people to shop at local businesses when they come and visit the neighborhood, stuff like that, and building a cohort of local retail and restaurants to kind of talk about how you encourage visiting that and doing coordinated like promoting between businesses. That is how businesses can kind of help each other. And we're trying to do that on a small scale, but a actual organization doing that might be more helpful.
Nice. And then I actually had heard another question in the neighborhood, sort of, and it's been happening a lot as we've approached people with the neighborhood plan, is people kind of erupt with different business ideas that they would love to see on Grand. Mm-hmm. If you were to start another business on Grand right now, what would it be?
I have so many business ideas. I'm kind of an idea person, so editing myself is one of my more important things I do. But I don't know, like right now the building next door to us is for sale, New Life Construction. I think it'd be amazing if we had an escape room in there, because then groups of people could come after the pandemic. Obviously, that's one of the reasons everything is difficult right now. And while they're waiting, they could shop around in the neighborhood. They could go out to dinner after, some more location-based things. I also always want more interesting retail, like Irish on Grand, a plant store or a dog store would be very popular right now. We just had Mother open up on Selby and Dale. I go there more than I should. It's a plant store. It's a problem for me, but I absolutely love having them in the neighborhood.
Yes, I have stayed away from them because I knew that I would blow all of my money.
Highly recommend, but also it's a problem. I'm known there now.
That's awesome. And then Monica, what other question do you have? Or have you
well, actually, we just got a question from Brian. What advice would you give to someone desiring to start a new business on the Avenue?
Brian, that was my question. That was literally the question I was just about to ask. Okay, yeah. Go for it, Abby.
Yeah, I think it depends a lot what kind of business you're opening. But if you're opening retail or something, I would look very heavily into buying a building because rent is really expensive. And that's not available to everyone, and that doesn't make sense for everyone, but I would consider it. I think on Grand specifically, you have to think very creatively about spaces. Like Mischief, my store, we're in an old Victorian house, which is the opposite of a traditional retail space. And Grand is like that because of our really weird zoning laws, but there's a lot of weird buildings. And I think finding one of those and figuring out how you can make that a strength instead of trying to work against it can make a really amazing business. But also just for on Grand, think about what's around you. Like we are located at Grand and Victoria, which is kind of one of the slightly busier areas of Grand. We have a lot of coffee shops near us. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend opening another cafe unless you have a really strong plan here. But if you go a few blocks in either direction, that's a better place for a cafe. So think about what's around you. Retail, you can open pretty much anywhere. I think we need all kinds of stores on Grand, but try, if you can, and it's difficult, to be close to other stores that complement you well, close to restaurants that people can shop at your store while they're waiting for their table, things like that.
Yeah, thanks. We just did a market study, the neighborhood planning committee. And one of the things that it taught us is that we don't have a very high amount of personal care stores along Grand, and we don't have a lot of apparel stores. I think we maybe used to have more apparel. So that I know are two things that a lot of folks are looking for. And then just one more thing, an entertainment venue, things like escape rooms, things like, jazz club or a wine bar that plays music on the weekends. Some kind of experiential thing is what we're hearing too, as kind of creating that third space.
I would be there every weekend.
Right.
Okay, Brian also would like to know, when you opened your store, what did you learn about that you would have done different based on hindsight?
Well, so for context, we opened our store 5 years ago. We were open for half a season in St. Anthony Park before we moved here, but the goal was always to move here. I don't know if there's any one lesson. We are kind of continuously growing and changing, which I think is some of the most important thing you can do as a small business. Like the pandemic threw everyone for a loop, and we have changed more in the last year than we have before that, just because everything is changing so quickly, and being able to adapt is super important. One thing that was just important for us was making sure that the store looked nice before we opened it. We had to do a ton of demolition on the building, re-siding, putting up retail fixtures and things like that. But I wouldn't say there's one big lesson. You can take and learn and bend with things as much as you need to, I'd say.
It seems, Abby, like a lot of what you did with the building and using an old house kind of, with a large lot is almost building your branding out into the front yard.
Yes, yeah. We have a pergola out front with a big sign on it, which was rather difficult to get up because our original M that we had on the old building was too big for the Summit law or for the Grand Avenue sign laws. There's a lot of laws about signage on Grand. It can only be so big, and that is measured by the biggest point. So you have to be very careful about signage, what direction it's facing, how big it is. But yeah, that's one of the ways you can kind of adapt to having a weird space, is bringing your branding out towards the front. I will say it's also important to make sure your building is accessible as you can make it. In an old Victorian house, that is very difficult, but try your best with it because it's very important.
Gotcha. Yeah. Thank you. I think one of the things that we're also discovering on the plan is this potential of maybe, given the expensive rents on Grand, of using some of these older houses and BC zoning to kind of create ways for entrepreneurs to start up on Grand with various things. Yeah. Thank you. Anything else, Monica, that we want to ask?
Not yet.
All right. Well, I think we're probably good. And then something we do every show is we want to honor our nonprofit community by sharing organizations our listeners can contribute to as they're able. What local nonprofit would you like to highlight today, Abby?
Yeah, I really love the Hallie Q. Brown Community Center. It's over off of Selby in the neighborhood. We work with them every holiday season for our holiday our holiday drive that we do. They do a really good job of supporting families in the neighborhood with food drives, with gift drives. And one of the ways we really like them for the holiday drive is they let the parents pick out the gifts for their kids rather than just sending them a random thing. So they respect the people that they work with. And I think they're a great organization. I highly recommend them. They also have Penumbra Theater Company based out of the same building. So they are an amazing neighborhood resource and do a lot of good work. So I highly recommend checking them out.
Awesome. We will share that link in our show notes and chat. Thank you so much, Abby. Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers for those listening now or those who will watch this later?
Yeah, I'll just say if anyone has any questions for me after this, I am always happy to talk to people. So you can message Mischief on Facebook or you can email me at Abby, ABBY, at mischieftoy.com. And I'd love to chat with you some more.
That's awesome. So we have come to the end of our learning journey here at Summit Hills Community Thinkers for today. Please do share this show on Facebook, like this page to keep up with more content. And then Monica will tell you about our guest on Friday, I believe. Oh no, you've lost your script. I got it. So this Friday at noon, we'll talk about planning for neighborhood resilience with planner, placemaker, and urban thinker John Commerce. And also please join us on SHA's community event on April 22nd, where we're gonna meet online, share what we've learned from our community engagement process so far with the neighborhood plan, and get a little bit more feedback from the community about the directions that we are headed in. We wanna make sure we're going in that right direction. So thanks everybody for tuning in. Enjoy the day, and hopefully we'll get some warmer weather here soon. Thanks again, Abby.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.